Hi, and welcome to Export Kit. In this example, we're going to take our web page design that we previously did and optimized, and we're going to create responsive screens for this. Now, currently, we can look and we can tell that our design, it's a little bit more than 180. We can slide this over to see exactly what. Less than 1150, so let's maybe call it 1140. What we're going to do is we're going to create another responsive screen for possibly 720 or 800. That should match a tablet. And you know what? Why not do a mobile as well? So the first step that we're going to do to create our responsive screen is we're going to add an additional layer, and we're going to add a CSS tag to this. So let's call this default. CSS screen tag, I should note actually. And let's actually call this our desktop view. So what we want to do is we just want to actually slide our first group and our main group into our desktop view. This will give us a main container for our actual desktop. Now this is using dynamic height, so it's important that we keep our containers relative. So for instance, we have a featured content, which this could be called simply desktop content. It depends on how you want to map it. Well, let's just keep it featured content. So what we're going to do is our next step, because this is our actual CSS screen for our default desktop, we're going to create another screen for about 720. So that should reach, let's actually pull out the ruler. That should reach about here. Okay, and let's just undo because we don't want our guides included. So what we're going to do is we're just going to actually copy this folder. Let's just duplicate it. And from our duplication, what we want to do is we always want to keep the highest size on the top. So our desktop is first, and we can simply minimize this. What we're going to do now is we're going to now work with our tablet, which is going to be 720. So let's just change our size here. And sorry, let's actually change the name as well. Now that we have our tablet defined, what we're going to do is we're going to simply hide our desktop view, and we're going to work with our tablet. So we know that our mapping is essentially 720. So let's actually create something that we can deal with this a little bit more clearly. Sorry, let's actually just get back to where this is. So let's move this to 720. And let's move this to 0. So essentially we have an idea as to how large our tablet view will be. So what we want to do is recenter our featured a little bit more. And let's assume that, hey, let's just take this whole, oops. Let's just take this whole content block and move it. So actually just put it below. Sorry, let's deal with these first. Okay, so now that we've resized a few elements just to simply match our tablet view, let's actually move these to the bottom as well. So essentially what we have here is how our tablet content will be displayed. So you'll note that we did not change any layer names. We simply repositioned our items as we want them displayed and resized accordingly depending upon our view. So what we're going to do afterwards is let's create now a mobile view. So let's go ahead, let's minimize and simply duplicate. So let's drag this below and let's call this mobile. And let's maybe make this 360. Sure. So you'll note that 360 is possibly around here. So let's simply, once again, let's change the header so that we can view it slightly better. Oops, that's the wrong thing. Oh, that's actually something that I did incorrectly. What I forgot to do was to actually hide the first tablet. That's the first step we want to do. And now let's actually change their position and size. So we just want to drag this over to the center a little bit more. And let's resize this image. Let's maybe bring this in also. Now, because this is mobile, this might be a little bit smaller, more towards a square. And let's actually just bring this all up. So you'll note that what we're doing is we're resizing all the content so it matches the positioning of our elements in our individual screens. This is key. We don't want to change any layer names. We only want to ensure that all elements are visible in our individual mobile views. Well, sorry, I should say our individual screen views. Let's just move this below. This might actually be a little bit up more. And let's now modify this slightly. Now you'll note that most of the title is not visible, so what we want to do is, well, there's two things that we could actually do. We could actually just change the size of the title, which might be the fastest thing. So instead of 45, let's make this 30. Has a very odd line height, but okay, so now we have a mobile view that we can work with. So in essence, what we've done is we've created 3 individual views. So let's actually just call this mobile. And we created this at 360. So you'll note that these are individual screens that will be assigned to each device based on its actual screen size, which we've just drawn in our Illustrator design. So this is our mobile view, and let's actually just change this slightly so it'll match better. Just to eliminate some scrolling. And let's actually save this as optimized. Now, the next step that we're going to do, because we have our layout, and we can actually just preview these. So this is our mobile layout. This is our tablet layout. And this is our desktop layout. So you'll see they're all slightly different to accommodate for the individual screens. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to turn on each screen layout, and we're going to start Export Kit, and basically it should take a little bit, but we're going to have a responsive website from our Illustrator design, which we made in just a couple of minutes. Now, once we log in, what we can do is we can tab over to Export, select HTML. Now, you must ensure that for the output options, we have responsive CSS selected. So once that's selected, we can go ahead and we can simply export. Now, once our export's complete, what we can do is we can just take a look at the output. Now, actually, before we even take a look at the output, there will be an error, and I know there will be an error, and it's for a simple reason. Illustrator is very different from Photoshop. Photoshop, when you copy a folder, it will actually only add copy to the parent folder. So, for instance, we have featured content, which is copied, so that's there, but technically we had copy on the initial parent itself. Now, if you do not go back and delete every single instance of the word copy, you will basically have errors in your output. So this is key. So whenever you're working with Illustrator, what you have to do is when you create your responsive screens, you have to delete copy. Now, technically, if we took a look at the output, you would notice this, that the other responsive screens wouldn't work. Only one screen would work. But simply, I'm just going to correct this before we go, just for time's sake. But important, always remove all instances of copy. Now you'll note that individual page items will not retain this, only the actual, let's go ahead and undo that, only the actual folder or layer itself. So we've done this, let's remove that. So that's for the desktop. We'll note our tablet, which was our original, is fine. So we can simply close that. But our mobile now has copy do also assigned. So let's go ahead, let's take out the copy to. Okay, so now that we've basically fixed that, let's go ahead and let's resave and let's re-export. Okay, so now that we've restarted Illustrator, what we can do is just head over to our exports, select HTML5, and we want to ensure that we have responsive screen selected, and can go ahead and export. Now while this is going, I can actually just preview what the original would have done, because it is here. Oh, it's actually saving. Okay, so this is the original, and you'll see that there are a couple of errors, and this is simply due to the fact that it's misleading some of the elements in the screens based on the naming convention. So we're going to see how this is rectified. So this is complete. What we can do is we can simply just refresh the page because we've reloaded it. So you'll see now that all elements are loaded correctly. Let's change our screen size. You'll see now that we have our tablet view. Well, this is slightly high. We could change this in the design and re-export. And you'll see now we have our mobile view. So this is quick and easy, responsive designs from Illustrator using Export Kit. PS to note, if you wanted an additional gap here, what you could have done is just simply draw a white shape or an extended background.